Hey, Nat, thank you so much for joining me on the Statement Brand podcast. Can I get you to introduce yourself for us?
Sure. Happy to be here also. Thanks for having me. So Natalie Lennon, chartered accountant and tax agent. I have over 20 years experience working with businesses, small, medium, large, very large, multinational, and also in accounting firms, mostly small accounting firms. I bought into a practice at 28, sold out 6 years later, started my own firm 7.5 years in. I'm on the Zero Partner Advisory Council. I like to dabble a little bit in TikTok. You might have seen my stuff.
Yeah,
Also
nice.
started Two Sides Academy this year, mentoring accountants to, show up, challenge old ways of thinking and build a firm of their dreams. Also didn't really mention my accounting firm, Two Sides Accounting. That's my accounting firm, a small boutique firm in Sydney South with a fully remote team. We pride ourselves on helping our clients work smarter, not harder through
Hmm.
automation and technology. I think that's it. Oh, and I've got a podcast, Totally Bossing at the podcast.
Totally bossing it. I love it. I really want to touch on the academy side of things in just a moment, but you said 20 years. I don't think I have 20 years experience doing anything. How do you keep it fresh? How do you turn up every day in 20 years and go, I'm still going to turn up for this, excited and turned on for it?
Look, I guess I did start young as well, so I will preface that. A lot of people are going, hang on, the math doesn't math on that. I did start straight out of high school and then studied part-time and then did a bit of full-time study and full-time work, so that was fun. So I guess I've got a bit of experience in juggling a lot of things and trying to, keep the love as I'm going on. And not going to lie, we all go through those periods of
Mm-hmm.
today is just especially this time of year, we're recording this, it's almost Christmas, a couple of weeks to go. And I think everybody's feeling that, like, dragging yourself to the finish line. But I think it's about taking the small positives and remembering why you started in the first place. Because as I said, not everybody's going to have a perfect day every single day. But at the end of the day, if we do love what we do, and primarily I think most of us do, then, as I say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I don't think that's
Yeah, no.
technically true, but I think there's a little bit of, there's a little bit of merit to that.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm really intrigued about this academy side of things because I see it as a wonderful platform to not only educate and give back to a community that you're so engaged with, but to by the merit of teaching you kind of position yourself as someone with the knowledge. Like, I mean, I'd hope so. And so how did you get over the imposter syndrome to start teaching? And was there a natural journey to this teaching mindset?
I think the imposter syndrome, I think that's a really good place to start. And I often say to my mentees is that even I get imposter syndrome sometimes. And even just saying it makes me feel a bit icky. I don't profess to have all the answers. I just know I've got a lot of years of experience and knowledge to be able to help others to deal with certain situations, and scenarios. And whilst it's something that I have always wanted to do for a while, so I always thought that I would potentially end up in the mentoring or business coaching
Mm-hmm.
space. It did sort of happen by accident. I had a couple of people reaching out to me early this year and asking me if I did mentoring. And at the time, I thought, no, I don't have enough time. It's not something that I, really want to do, and I sort of parked it. And then when I got to speak at the the Accounting and Business Expo earlier this year, I think in March,
Mm-hmm.
I presented on TikTok and marketing. And I think that resonated with a lot of probably younger accountants. And so that came up again in terms of coaching and training. And then, I just thought, why not? Let's set up a whole new business. Let's give this a crack in my spare time. I've got so much spare time running an accounting firm. But it's something that I love. And if people listening and they've heard me speak, they'll know that I often say it's something that I would do for free. But obviously, we want to help our clients for free, but it doesn't mean we can do it
Mm.
for free. So just being able to do something that I love, that actually doesn't feel like work at the moment, but we're still only early days.
Yeah, I think that the something I heard this week in regards to having an education platform is people who pay attention, and so we want to give all this information for free, but often it's kind of like, oh yeah, thanks, I'll read that when I've got time, and then you don't make the time for it. But if you pay,
Exactly.
you got a little bit of skin in the game. You're going
Yeah.
to turn up and go, what does Nat have to say? And I'm
Yeah.
really engaged. So
Yeah.
is this a one-to-one mentoring platform, or is this a one-to-many pre-filmed content or cohorts? How does that work?
So I guess it's a little bit of both. So I've got my podcast where I give some free information away. I, share a lot on social media, my learnings and things that are coming from the mentoring. And then primarily it's the one-to-one.
Mm.
So it's a one-to-one, but also we've just started introducing a group scenario. So everybody who does the one-on-one gets the group included. And we're actually finding that collaboration of having, I think there's 7 at the moment, so having 7 different people in the room who are on a similar journey to yourself to be able to bounce things off and make sure they're on the right track. Because whilst, like I said, I don't know everything and I'm just guiding them based on my experiences, I'm very well aware that I'm 20 years in and some of my experiences have changed. And I think that's another thing that I think a lot of business coaches and mentors really need to think about, because I think a lot of people go into that space, but they're still teaching the same old things they've taught previously. So I'm helping them to, I guess, challenge each other, and that it's okay to have these weird and wonderful ideas of ways that they want to do things.
So what are people coming to learn? Are they learning to build their brand or their firm or both? How does that come out in the academy?
Yeah, so both. So usually it's accounting firm owners who have just gone out on their own. And a lot of the time, they think that they know exactly what running a firm looks like. And I must admit, when I was 28 and I became a partner, even I thought that, but I was lucky enough, I had 2 business partners to help guide me during that transition. So a lot of them don't have that. So we're looking at everything from pricing to marketing to apps to procedures to staff to just everything that you need to look at when you're starting a firm. And it can be a really fun time, but can also be quite an overwhelming time, because you go from being, even if you're, a manager, you're still doing a lot of hands-on work. So then when you go into starting your own firm, you've got to do the hands-on work and also the business side of things, which I think as accountants, we think that we know all of that because we help our clients with it. But then when we're faced to do it, it can be a little bit different.
There's so many layers to running a business that when you witness it or you participate in it, it's a completely different version to the age-old thing of like, oh, I could do my boss's job, and then you get the job and you really can't.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you started your firm about 7 years ago now, is that right?
Yeah, almost 7.5 now. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And when you started Two Sides, had you already established yourself as a bit of a personal brand, or was that something you started to take on with the advent of your new business, or did it come after?
So it definitely came after. I think when I started my firm, originally I took a small parcel of clients with me. And so I was very much the cardigan wearing, typical accountant, didn't want to rock the boat, wanted them to have a smooth transition from, the older school firm into my new school firm. And then as I started to build it and I started to work out my ideal client who I wanted to work with, I was slowly bringing in, a bit more of my personality. But I think if I think back to when it sort of was a real shift, was probably when I went to my very first XeroCon, which was in year 1 of starting the business. And I met people, like Andrew Van Der Beek, for one. He was a big inspiration to, I guess, the shift for me going, but if this guy can, have his beard and his ripped jeans and his T-shirts and everyone still respects him as an accountant, then I don't need to put on that, persona of the suit and all the rest of it. I can be myself. And it slowly started. And then I think when COVID hit was when it all really kicked off for me in a personal branding point of view, because I felt like if the world was ending, I didn't care what anybody thought of me. And what that meant was that I was just showing up mostly on TikTok at this stage because nobody else was on there. So I could do whatever I wanted. I could be Natalie, the funny accountant, the accountant who doesn't take herself too seriously. And people just loved it because they were like, my accountant is, unapproachable. They're perceived to be unapproachable. They're perceived to be, this person that I don't really gel with, but, you're over here showing us how fun and cool you are.
Yeah.
Even saying that makes me cringe. And so it just resonated with people. And then it's just sort of, built from there.
Listen, 22,000 followers on TikTok is nothing to cringe at all. I know sometimes the process of doing it can feel cringe, but I think you have to climb cringe mountain a little bit. It's cringe until it stops. And once it stops, it's like one of the best resources or assets that you could build for yourself. And have you seen any reward coming from doing the TikTok of it all?
Definitely a huge reward. But just quickly on that whole cringe part, I feel like we read this a lot in, marketing books and blogs and all the rest of it. The experts always say, if you don't cringe at your first product, your first social thing, your first book, your first anything, then you've waited too long to start, right? So even I
Wow.
look back at
Okay.
so
Love
you've just
that.
got to get on there and just get over yourself because, like even some of my stuff now I cringe at. So that's been my number one sort of key takeaway for people is just get over yourself and post. What was the question? I've forgotten on my train of thought
Yeah,
now. Sorry, Chad.
TikTok.
The TikTok. Oh, yes. So it took me a long time to get, find out my ideal client. Because when I first started, I was just posting, all over the place. Then when I started to get some traction, I really thought, okay, I need to sit down and like actually strategize what I'm doing with this. So sat down, strategized my ideal client and my niche, and then really started to narrow down on that. And then over the last probably 12 months, we've had on average probably 4 leads per month that are coming from TikTok.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's huge. The way that I also sell, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's LinkedIn, whatever social media platform you choose, there definitely is a lot of merit into finding clients online because you're able to talk to your exact ideal client instead of just getting referrals from clients and feeling like you have to work with them because, your really good clients referred them and they're not your ideal client. And they never there's always that friction. They don't value what you do. Whereas now I've turned that script right around. So now
Wow.
I actually have a wait list and people apply to work with me. So no longer am I going, I'll come to your office and then I'll sell to you why you should work with me. It's the other way around. So that's the power of social media by, showing my audience that I'm an expert accountant, that I know what I'm talking about, that I'm personable. When they do, have a meeting with me, they already feel like they know me. So I just think that is just, absolutely crazy to think about.
Yeah,
But
that's kind of
also,
wonderful to think that like you turning up more authentically as yourself in talking in the way that feels comfortable to you, not only makes you feel less kind of grimy when you're doing sales, but it means that people are actively coming to you, filling your pipeline, and now you have a waiting list and an active bucket that you can pull clients in from just from getting over the cringe factor of
yeah,
posting online.
yeah,
Wow.
it's super cool. And I think as well, I think a lot of people start social media and they say, no one, there's not many people commenting my posts. There's not many people seeing my posts. Even if you're on Instagram when you're starting out on TikTok, even if you're only getting, I think some of my TikToks don't always go viral. I feel like the strategy now is not to go viral. It's to, get your ideal client. And even if, only 200 or 300 people see it, that's still more people than you would ever really connect with at a networking event.
Yeah,
And then to sort of,
absolutely.
I guess, go one step further, one of my TikToks has had over 500,000 views. Now, I don't think there's any other time in my lifetime where I would ever speak to that many people at once, unless I was on TV or,
Yeah.
something like that. So I just still think that's wild.
That is wild. It almost kind of boggles the mind that anyone could ever reach that many people at one time. I really like this idea, and I kind of want to meditate on it and ruminate on it a little bit more. How did you? So you start making some videos. What do your first videos look like? What do the cringy first Nat online look like?
So a couple of them are sort of a bit of dancing. So there's one
Okay.
where there's one which I often play when I'm doing webinars and things, and it's basically JobKeeper legislation in the background, and I'm doing this dance, and it's to the Lamb Chop sing along song that goes on about the song that doesn't end. Um, and you're just having a bit of fun with it, and the accountants love that. That was just, I guess, a bit of an outlet, right? Like, if we don't laugh, we're going to cry during that period. So yeah, a lot of dancing and funny sort of videos, but also a lot of videos just talking about a lot of the legislation that was being released by the government during the time, because
Yeah,
they
sure.
were releasing it every day, every second day. And I guess that's also what pushed me to be doing the videos, was that people were, asking me questions all day, every day. And so I thought, okay, what's the best way to get this information? I was doing mail outs and webinars and things. But then, because all my friends and family were also asking me questions, I just started doing videos on Facebook as well, just short videos. And so people were sharing them around everywhere. And that got me a lot of goodwill as well, to be, the accountants talking about all the
Right.
legislation and everything during that time. Because I think a lot of accountants during that time were quite overwhelmed and quite overrun with a
Yeah.
lot of work. And then look, so were we. But I think, I was in that fight or flight sort of mode. I just needed to work 24/7 because if I sat, I might be just crying in the corner.
What I love when I scroll back through your TikTok is you can see that you are testing and you're kind of playing with, okay, I got to do this one. And this is like, here's a new office tour. And it gets a couple hundred likes or a couple hundred views, whatever it might be. And you test. And then something works. You might get 5,000 views or 20,000 views. And you can see you've made an adjustment and you go, something resonated here. And so how actively are you pre-doing content versus being reactive to what the platform and your audience is telling you?
So I do a lot of planning, but I do go through phases like anyone. We get busy and the best laid plans don't work out. So I do try to plan as much as I possibly can. But then if I see something that's trending or like some of the ones that have gone really crazy viral, usually around tax time, or if there's an article that's been published on news.com.au or something that I know is going to get a lot of people commenting, because the more people comment, the more the algorithm goes, this must be really good, and that pushes it out to more people. I guess it is a bit of testing, but it is also of, I think, as I get more followers, I'm more conscious about what I post. And then it makes me think about not posting. So the same way as you would be cringing about posting, now that I've got as many followers as I have, I think I've got to think about it more. But then I feel like it's not as authentic. So I'm always wrestling with that in my brain. And then sometimes I just think, I'm just going to post things that I want to post about, because not only do I use it for business and leads and all the rest of it, I still do use it to have a little bit of fun as well.
Yeah, great. I think you have to, right? If you're not having fun, like, why am I doing this? But like you said, you're getting a consistent flow of clients through TikTok. And it's funny because we are told that TikTok is the kids platform where they're doing the dancing videos. And I feel like it's almost like when you're refusing to keep up with your kids' music because, it's just yelling and shouting and it's just noise. But like, if you can engage with that, you've got an opportunity that so many people aren't utilizing. You're the person connecting.
Yeah, I think, like I often say, it's similar to, like, YouTube's still big, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a lot harder to build a following on YouTube now than it was when it first started. And even though TikTok has actually been around, I think since 2016, it didn't really take off until COVID. So that's only 4 years ago. So it's still relatively young. So I still think, there's still a lot of opportunity to get more eyeballs on your content on TikTok than anywhere else. Even Instagram, like I've been on Instagram for years and years. And look, I do have a following on Instagram, but not as much as I do on TikTok. And I find it's a lot harder to get more eyeballs on Instagram as well.
Yeah. The organic reach on TikTok is far better than Instagram. But Instagram, we can really kind of build a loyal following. There's kind of a benefit to different platforms. Do you track where people come from as they come into your firm? Of like, did you find me on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn? Are you doing that?
Yeah. So there's a form on our website that it says book a free call, and they fill in a couple of questions to apply to work with us. And one of the questions is, where did you find us? And it's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, referral, or other. And they just pop it in. I think that's really important to track where your leads come from. And look, it's probably not perfect because they might have seen me once on TikTok, once on Instagram. They say it takes, I think, 7 times for them to see your content before they buy from you. So it can be a bit hard and a bit skewed, but I think you've still got to try and collect some of the data so that you have some idea where the leads are coming from.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Nat, I would love to talk about your personal brand in terms of kind of your colleagues in the industry. I think this is something that sometimes we forget, is that your personal brand is important in terms of relationships and collaborations. Maybe it's about opportunities to speak or maybe co-write or co-feature on something. What is your approach to building your brand and your relationships and networking inside of an accounting industry?
Look, I think it's really important, and, special shout out to everybody in our industry. You're all amazing, and I wouldn't be where I am today, without all of you. Special shout out goes to Heather Smith. I don't know if you've had her on the podcast yet.
No, yeah, but Heather's wonderful.
Yeah, Heather's always advocating for everybody. I think it was her who reached out to the Chartered Accountants, the Institute of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, and told them to do a story on my TikTok, and that got me on the cover of their national magazine, which also goes through New Zealand. So without her, that just gave, a real boost to sort of everything that was going on. But it's also really important to make those connections and then get introductions to other people who will open up, other doors in terms of articles, and speaking. If you want to speak at events, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to reach out to the organizers or reach out to someone else who's speaking and ask them and put your case forward. Those things don't just come to you. All right. So that's probably another key takeaway that I work on with my mentees, is to definitely contact the people you want to work with. Don't just, I had one of them say to me, I was really upset I didn't get on the Zero Partner Advisory Council this year. And I said, well, I've actually been trying to get on the Zero Partner Council for a couple of years. And she was like, oh, that makes me feel a lot better. I'm like, things don't just pop up and happen. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And like I said, I've been in the industry now for 20 years. So I didn't just pop up yesterday and all of a sudden I'm having all this success, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going on, behind closed doors. And I think having built a lot of goodwill with, I guess, clients and other things behind the scenes before I went out on my own was really important too. Because when I went out on my own, I already had that network to support me. It wasn't like, okay, now I'm starting, let's just start all these things. Like I already had, that all, being worked on.
One of the things I have noticed is you really do have to make your own luck or build your own opportunities. And I literally just this month, I'm really leaning into the power of a cold email, of like a genuine, like I'm writing this one-to-one, not a cold email blast, but a hi person. I see value in us connecting. If not now, I would love to. This is my favorite phrase. Well, sorry, camera does this every 20 minutes. I'll start.
That's all right. I just had to put my phone on D&D because I realized it was still on.
I'll start my part again. Yeah, something I recognize is that you really have to build your own opportunities. You really have to kind of hold the door open for yourself and hopefully for others as well. Yeah. And this month I am really leaning into and discovering the power of a cold email. And it has to be real and authentic and genuine. You can't just blast people. It doesn't work. People can tell people's bullshit radars are pretty finely tuned these days. But an email that says, hi person, I see there's an opportunity for value for both of us here. I would love to connect. If not now, this is the secret weapon. I would love to earmark it for the future. And I have had 100% success rate with that second line.
I love it.
And like a 40 to 50% success rate with the rest of the email. Everyone is like, absolutely, let's do it sometime. And then you're already in for the next time you want to ask them. What has been your approach to opening doors? Like when you say you're emailing the organizers, what does that even look like?
So I think you hit the nail on the head before, Chad, when you said if you don't ask, you don't get. And that's something that I've learned a lot over the past, probably just in the past year and a half, is, you're saying everybody do all these cool things, but you've got to ask them, like, how are you, like, what are you doing? Find out what they're doing and then learn from them. And that's what I've done a lot. I'm really good at consuming a lot of information and making it work for myself. So a prime example would be the Global Women in Accounting Influencers Group, founded by Heather Smith, Alex Falcon, and Sarah Lawrence. Now, they're always advocating in that group too, if you don't ask, you don't get. Mm-hmm. And Heather's also really great at actually drafting emails and going, here's an email draft of, what you should send if you're looking to get featured in a publication, for example. So Heather does a lot of that media work and she's really great at it. So she's helping us then get those things, and then we're sort of passing that stuff on. So I think it's, like I said before, connecting with your network and even cold emails, like you said before. So for example, I think they're full of speakers now, but the Accounting and Business Expo, that's, definitely a good event to start out if you're looking to speak. They do a lot of panels and things like that. So just reaching out to the organizers, which you'll find on their website or on LinkedIn, and saying, look, I've got an idea for a topic, can we have a chat about it? I'd like to be considered next year. What's the worst that they can say no? They're always looking for new speakers. So yeah, just, I think, networking and asking.
Yeah, great. I was saying this to Sarah, and I think Shay as well. I think the women just get it. The idea of like the here if you need, like the whole netball phrase of I'm here to support you, but I fully trust your own agency to decide if you need help. Yeah. But also the unconditional, I will always be there to help, and whatever I can give, I will give. It is something like, I just see it. It's so wonderful to see a network of people just so encouraging and supportive of each other.
Yeah. I think COVID has, I think that's always been there as an industry, but I think I didn't really start to see it until I went to XeroCon and started going to the accounting conferences and events. And I think up until that, I thought, where have these people been my whole career? Like, they've been there. I just wasn't, involved. And I just think, yeah, since COVID, we all came together a little bit more. I think we all bonded over the experience of, the world falling and having to deal with the ATO and all the government departments that we had to deal with during that time. We're all in the trenches together. So I think that's also strengthened our bond even more. But I think you're right. It does seem to be mostly the women. There are a few, awesome males, that, we network and get lots of ideas off. Like I said before, Andrew Vanderbeek, he's a good friend of mine. I call him from time to time and say, what should I do here? And we have a great chat. So just even reaching out, like meeting people at conferences or even on LinkedIn, and then just, connecting with them offline and reaching out. There's a few other people that have just reached out to me and just said, hey, Nat, love what you do. I've got a quick question. Can you help me? And I've just answered them. And then, we chat over WhatsApp or Instagram messages or whatever. I think everybody in our industry is just wants to help each other. Obviously, to an extent, we've only got so much time, right? So we can only give so much. So if I don't respond to a message, it's not that, it's just, I just don't have the time.
I think that is a really good piece of advice. I think so many people want to help and are flattered that you would ask them for help, that you think that they are in a position of expertise or authority, that like your opinion matters. And so people are usually pretty excited to help or feature on your new podcast or to co-write a blog. Like people are pretty keen to connect and collaborate. And so I'd probably challenge the listeners to do the awkward thing, be a little bit cringe, and reach out to people and say, hey, I'd love your help here. Yeah. And so, okay, you have a pretty unreal podcast and you're in season 3, is that right, of your podcast?
Yeah. So season 1 came out of COVID. So, I always wanted to do a podcast, kept changing my idea of what I wanted to do. So season 1 was interviewing business owners post-COVID about how they, pivoted, which I think was the buzzword around that time, or thrived and all those types of things. But then I realized it was often hard getting people pinned down for interviews, which I'm sure you can relate to. Then season 2 was just me giving, business advice, which I don't know. I think with the business advice, it can be a little bit hard to work out what to talk about. But also, if you've seen my TikToks, I like to do the short, sharp things. I don't like to waffle on about the tax law of XYZ, like that's not me at all. So then when I launched the academy, I decided to change again for season 3 and make it more for the accounting firm owners. So topics like burnout and overseas conferences, why they're important, and marketing and those types of things. Yeah.
I love this idea because it speaks to a testing mindset, but it's also there's this idea I've picked up recently that a lot of people are really hyper focused on niche and niching down, and there's a lot of value in niching. But I think testing and trialing and seeing what works is just as important, sometimes more so. And I'd almost put them in 2 camps. There's like the architect business owner, then there's the archaeologist business owner of like, I'm going to chip away at this thing and I'll eventually reveal what it was meant to be this whole time. And I like that you've pivoted, and to use the buzzword again, I like that you've pivoted your content on the podcast, because I think that helps me as someone wanting to start a personal brand, that I can get it wrong, or maybe not wrong, just not perfect the first time, and it's not the end of the world, right? You can move forward, you can try different things, and maybe the second, third, or 10th thing is the one that really kicks off.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think sometimes I often joke that because I was in a partnership with 2 older partners who would never let me make much change at all, that now in my, my own accounting firm, I just make it, I make a decision, I just run with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little bit too quickly, but at the same time, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? We pivot and we regroup, we learn from it, and we go another way. I think I'm learning to come back now that we're now, almost 8th year, to come back a little bit and have a bit of an even filter. But I still think like I'm having fun too. Like I get an idea and I obviously still workshop it and think it through, but if I think that's got legs, let's have a go. Let's do it. I think there's a lot of things that if I hadn't have done, I wouldn't be where I am today. If I hadn't put myself out there and been a bit silly on social, if I hadn't reached out to others and asked to speak, if I hadn't done all these things, I wouldn't have the academy. I wouldn't have worked with a lot of the amazing accountants that I'm working with. I wouldn't be probably on this podcast. There's so many things that come from just putting yourself out there.
I'd like to ask, I think something that is overlooked, particularly for men in personal branding, and I see a lot of women doing this really well, is personal image. I feel like a lot of men kind of go, take me or leave me kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's just blokes in general. But I recognize, say, yourself or Rachel Harris or different people going, okay, I've got, or even Heather, you mentioned before, you go,
Yeah.
I have an opportunity here to make a point of difference
Yeah.
that still feels authentic, but it is an intentional and purposeful decision.
Yeah.
What has your approach been, and how has it evolved to personal image as it pertains to your personal brand?
So I think, as I said, similarly before, it comes back to not wanting to be put in a box and not being, like even now when I speak at a conference and I'm wearing jeans and my pink jacket, my mum will comment and say, couldn't you wear a suit? And I'm like, Mum, just because I don't have a suit on doesn't mean I'm not professional, right? So there's always going to be that balance. And look at me, might not be for everybody either. Like I know sometimes having a personal brand that is a bit out there can be polarizing, but it can also be the flip side and really niche down on your exact person that you want to work with. And I think for me, obviously the funny side of things is just me. So that's like just comes naturally. So my husband's got a gym and a running coaching business. And so I would do these funny live videos when we'd be out at the running races about the people. Well, I'd be like standing there doing a live and making jokes and laughing and whatever. And so for me then to naturally, start the TikTok and all those videos sort of did come naturally, but just in a bit of a different way. So I wasn't once again trying to be something else. I was just being me.
Yeah,
And then the
cool.
pink jacket was another sort of thing that sort of happened by accident. I started wearing it in my videos. And then when I didn't wear it, people were like, oh, we didn't know it was you. So yeah, that just came a bit of an accident, but now has turned into, my personal branding.
I love that. I love an eventual arrival at a vibe, or
Yeah.
again that kind of archaeologist mindset of I've seen people go, okay, cool, I'm gonna be the lady in red, and I dye my hair red, my lipstick's red, my glasses are red, my jacket and my blouse are red, and it's like, okay, but like, how does this pertain to anything else? Like, what's the relevance? Whereas I see other people kind of again arrive, like let's like your jacket. Yeah, evolve, exactly. Your jacket, my glasses, what like natural thing. Like I'm covered in tattoos. Andrew Vanderbeek, same thing. Like or the beard or whatever it might be. It's like you can easily shave, Andrew, but it's a part of your brand. And if he did, then it's like people might double take and not recognize that, oh, here's an opportunity to connect with Andrew, the person I listen to the content of.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for a particular color or a particular outfit or a particular, is there a reason, or was it just came
Look, well,
naturally?
you might say that I sort of like pink.
Yeah.
Pink's always sort of been my, my color that I've liked. And I think as I've gotten older, I probably haven't worn it as much. And then I started to, once again, when I was being a bit more comfortable with, who I want to be and sort of being the stuffy old accountant, I started wearing the pink and the color. And so just naturally, it started to evolve. And like I said before, like if you're building a personal brand, don't try to be someone that you think people want you to be. You want to be authentic and real because people can see right through it, especially on video, right? If you try to pretend to be someone else, there's no hiding.
Stiff, very stiff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked through a lot of different things. We've talked on personal image, podcasts, cold emailing, all this kind of stuff, Cringe Mountain. Let's say tomorrow, let's say we stripped the world of their understanding of who Natalie is, and your TikToks have 0 followers, you have 0 videos. What are we doing tomorrow? Like, what does the first 30 days look like? What's the next 30 and the next 30 after that look like in terms of building your personal brand from scratch again?
Okay. So I think my motto, like I said before, is just start. So don't worry about who's going to see it, who's going to think what, because 9 times out of 10, everyone's really busy, right? Not everybody's seeing every single post that you're doing. So we've got to get over ourselves, number one. Then we've got to pick a platform. So whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, could be Facebook, could be TikTok. Pick one that you're already on, that you're already familiar with. If you're good at writing things, probably LinkedIn. If you're good with video, TikTok or Instagram. Facebook, probably depending on your age, if that's, feel more comfortable there. If you're not on anything, then obviously do a bit of research, speak to people and work out which platform, you want to go on. Because I think a lot of the time people go, oh my God, I've got all these platforms. It's too overwhelming. I just won't start. And so it seems like it's this big mountain that you just can't climb. Whereas if you just bring it down and go, okay, I'm just going to do one and pick that one. And if you're already on there, fantastic, because you already sort of know how to use it. Then what I would do is sit down and have a look at who your target client is. And if you have no idea what that is, obviously Google and ChatGPT will be your best friend. But also you could let's just do it as the real base. So I just think about all your clients and think about the best ones. What do they do? How old are they? Like, what's their vibe? All those types of things.
And everyone kind of knows who their best client is, right?
Like
no one's kind of questioning who that is. Yeah.
And then from there, you want to, and this is a really important one. A lot of people think, okay, I've got that down pat. Now, what am I going to post about? So they go, okay, I'm going to schedule in my calendar for Friday. I'm going to sit down and think about what to post about. That time comes, they sit down, they go. So my recommendation is when clients ask you questions, write them down. So I've got a Mac, so I keep a note on my Mac, which syncs to my phone. So at any time I can write it down, it will sync. So if you're a bit old school, you might want pen and paper, or depending on, iPad, whatever, but keep it on your desk. When a client asks you a question, there's some content. Because if they've asked you that question, there's going to be others who are asking that question.
Yeah, great.
So then if you block that time down, and all you need, if you're just doing 30 days, and we're just going to start with one app. So once you've thought about your ideal client and you've got a few of these questions, then all you really need to do is probably sit down for, maybe 2 hours and batch some content and just do one post a week. So do 4 posts, whether they're text writing, if you're on LinkedIn, whether it's a video. If you don't want to speak to camera yet, if you're not comfortable at doing that, you could even do a video with some text over it and some music. So that's some things that people do on Instagram and TikTok as well if they're not confident talking to camera. And 4 posts, you've already got your content. You just got to put it all together. Might take you a bit longer the first time, but I think just when you break it down like that, it can be less overwhelming.
So when you're batching it, what you're saying is like you've got 4 ideas, you're going to film them all together.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. And then what are your hurdles between that hitting record and publishing? Are you thinking about how you present your speaking, ums and ahs, or are you just being whatever and then editing it out? Or like, how are you navigating that in between?
So really, I've only started actually editing and cutting out those ums and ahs in probably the past year.
Sure.
Before that, I would either just keep recording it until it was right or keep it short, right? So I often say, attention spans are short, right? So the same way that we feel about marketing, where sometimes we're overwhelmed, it's too hard, it's, we don't want to listen to someone talk about marketing for half an hour. So we've moved on. So your ideal client wants to hear you talk about the accounting and tax and bookkeeping stuff in a short, maybe under a minute video. So even if you just took one of your topics and split it into 4 videos and did 4 really quick videos, just one take, record it to camera and then upload it. Like don't overthink it. Don't think it needs to be perfect. Don't think it needs to be really edited. Just start.
Okay. And what about your captions? Are we thinking about these at all? Is there any relevance with SEO, or you just think it's about just put out content?
Look, I think if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't think too much about the captions. Obviously, ChatGPT can help, but then you've got to try and bring it back and make sure it sounds like you. It doesn't sound like, ChatGPT or someone else. Like, obviously, it's good for SEO. So especially in terms of TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn, but probably not so much for SEO on Google, is to make sure that, so let's say if you're doing a video on GST, you want to make sure the caption says something short about GST and what you're talking about, so that if someone's searching that, it will come. But I think in the beginning, it's more about you getting comfortable to post and put yourself out there. So I don't think marketing people might listen to this and go, that's stupid advice, because if you post something, it's really crap, no one's going to want to, listen to you the second or third time. But the reality is the first couple of posts, no one's probably going to see them anyway.
Yeah, totally. And okay, so let's say that's your first 30 days. So you are constantly, you're a sponge for questions. You're writing questions down. That's a really good well of opportunity to answer. You've gotten over your hurdle of creating and posting, and you've done it a couple of weeks in a row. You're practicing and you feel like, okay, a little bit of a rhythm. What's month 2 look like?
Yeah. So month 2, I would say probably increase to 2 posts per week. because you should be getting faster at it. If you can't, still 4 posts for the next 30 days is totally fine. But if we want to increase it and get some quick wins, I would increase that. And then spend a bit more time in terms of your captions. Also start interacting with other people on your chosen platform. So adding people, commenting on their content, because the way these apps work is they want to see that you're on the app and you're engaging, and then that'll help push your content out. But it'll also help you in making those connections to then get more eyeballs on your content.
That's
So
really good
definitely the next
advice.
tip.
That's fantastic. So it's not just about ask. Everyone look at my video, watch someone else's video, engage in the comments, share, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I love that. And then obviously then the algorithm rewards both of you because you're both engaging, like double win. That's awesome. And I feel like it also kind of comes back to what you're saying before about like collaboration. You almost open up new networks when it comes to maybe we do a video together. Maybe there's something else here in the future.
Yep.
What does the next 30 days look like? So this is month 3. You've gotten a good rhythm. You're practicing. You're way more comfortable than you were before. Where are we at now?
So I would say now, if you really want to step it up a notch, you could look to cross-post your content. And what I mean by that is post it on different apps. So, for example, my tool of choice is TikTok. So I'll usually film in TikTok, and then once I post it on TikTok, it downloads to my phone. There's a little checkbox to make sure the watermark doesn't come across, so it doesn't have that little TikTok mark on it.
What a great tip!
Yeah.
I've been screwed with that a few times. Great tip.
Yes. And then, repost it on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I've actually been reading quite a bit, and LinkedIn is actually starting to push videos a lot more because not everybody's doing them. So there's the hot tip. If you can do videos on LinkedIn, they're going to do quite well. So you're reposting them on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. There's some cool little tools. One of the ones that I use is called Buffer, and it's free for up to 3 social media platforms. So what you do is you just draft the post once, and then you choose Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It'll post to all 3 for you, and you can select different times and days and things like that. So it's all about working smarter, not harder. If you had to hop into every app and post it, it might take a little bit of time. And then you can also adjust the caption slightly depending on what app you're on as well. And then if you want to go one step further, you could then look to outsource your social media. But I'm a big advocate of doing a little bit yourself first.
Yes.
Because it can be expensive, especially if you want them to come and help you do the videos. So if you start yourself, you have a bit of an idea of where you're at, and then you can outsource. So I do outsource my 2 business Instagrams and Facebooks, and then I do all my personal stuff myself. And then the videos that I do, I'll send to them to put the covers and the captions on for the business pages. Yeah.
That Buffer tip is actually, this last month is really like becoming an expert. Like Buffer, fantastic. To be able to share simultaneously, but also schedule out. I am guilty of kind of dumping content because I don't want to be posting a week. I'll just post it all on a Monday and then go, damn, I've kind of wasted my opportunity.
Yeah. And I still do that sometimes too. And I'm like, I was at a conference last week and I was just posting all the stuff because I was like, I couldn't be bothered to schedule this. So it's just too good. I just want to quickly get it out now.
Yeah.
And so I was just, posting it willy-nilly. So it's okay to have a bit of have a plan, but then also go off script a little bit. That's probably my MO.
Yeah. That also, that tip that you had about LinkedIn is true for all platforms. We're discovering is that when a new platform or a platform is introducing a new tool or a new feature, they reward and artificially boost people who adapt and adopt those new features. LinkedIn has announced this year a couple times, hey guys, we really want you to do this video. If you're going to turn up, they will artificially boost your reach, which I need to remember for sure. And I think a lot of us could learn from. That's really, really good insight. Yeah, love that. Well, thank you.
Actually, probably quickly, another tip for LinkedIn, something that I've learned lately as well from other people, is when you're scrolling on LinkedIn and they have the caption and then there's no link to anything, you're like, where's the link? So apparently LinkedIn doesn't like you putting the link in LinkedIn, in the caption. So you've got to put it in the first comment. Otherwise, it doesn't push your video or post out. I think that's silly, but
I've heard this as well. Links kind of die because they want you to stay on the platform.
In the platform.
Yes, I've heard this. Yeah. Good tips. You're full of good tips, Nat. This is great. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome chat. And I think the whole episode has been full of little nuggets of wisdom, especially for those who might feel a bit apprehensive for taking that first step. You've really kind of covered some really good ground on how to go from 0 to 1. And that's the trickiest part.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully we'll see more people on TikTok and doing
Yes.
videos.
Yeah, and maybe your email inbox will be full of people asking for advice, doing the cold emails. But yeah, Nat,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This has been a wonderful chat, full of wisdom. Is there what's the best place for people to engage with you, and where can we send people to?
Look, I'm on all the social media platforms. So, yeah, just whichever platform you're on, you can reach out to me on. Most of them, I think LinkedIn, I'm actually Natalie Lennon. On all the others, it's Nat Leno.
Great,
Wherever you feel comfortable reaching out to me, you'll find me.
unreal, love it. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me.